Drug usage has been a crucial issue worldwide for many decades. It impacts not only the particular individuals addicted to illegal substances but also the surrounding around them, and eventually, it leads to massive social issues. This essay aims to identify drug addiction's influence on society on the local, national, and global scale. Therefore, it will observe the reasons and causes of the addiction and the ways of preventing it. The problems with drug addiction, first of all, begin in the local community and family in particular. When some family member becomes addicted, it launches the chain of consequences that affect other spheres of an individual's life. If the parents face that problem, they start to neglect the child and disregard their parental duties, consequently leading to the worsening of the child's physical and mental well-being. Often, they lack the necessary care, clothes, shelter, and unsafe living conditions. In the worst cases, children eventually can appear in the orphanage. Otherwise, when the younger member is affected by the illegal substances usage, parents struggle to gain their children's trust while trying to lead them to the path of problem recognition and recovery. In addition to all the problems, children usually develop a codependent pattern of relationships. As they become adults, the victims of drug abuse in the family are more likely to get into destructive relationships. Therefore, people addicted to drugs risk sacrificing close relationships with their family, experience the loss of a family member, lower their chances of a successful future, quality education, and profession. Evaluating the consequences of drug use on the national scale, the most demonstrative example is the overuse of opium among the citizens of the United States. Opium is one of the most common medications that people get addicted to accidentally or purposely use along with other substances. Although the financial expenses of opium overuse have peaked at $78.5 billion in 2013, those are not the only costs to the nation that brought the addiction. Eventually, it increases crimes and violations, different kinds of abuse, deaths, and the spread of infections such as human immunodeficiency virus and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. It results in the workplace's overall productivity and performance for persons who struggle with addiction failing to fulfill their duties. Those who have any addiction develop an indifference to the significant spheres of life and decrease job involvement, resulting in an economic state. Assessing the impact of drugs addiction on the global scale, the first thing to mention is the massive amount of deaths. In 2019, the drug use caused the death of about 500,000 people, along with the social, health financial losses that the population has experienced. Moreover, it contributes to the spread and progression of multiple dangerous illnesses and diseases, for example, hepatitis C. It becomes evident that this issue affects the population worldwide mainly with the same consequences and outcomes. Drug addiction stops the economy from developing because people are neglecting their education and jobs. At the same time, the government spend a decent amount of money to fight the drug supply and the population's addiction. Despite all the danger that illegal substances cause to humans, public perception is changing along with the legislation of cannabis. For instance, the other drugs start to seem less threatening and more socially acceptable. To address the issue of the economic consequences, the case of heroin will serve as an example. In the past decades, the number of young adults using heroin has doubled, and now there are 1 million users in the United States. As the supplements cocaine and methamphetamine often come as supplements and induce the further overusage of the substances. However, trying to measure the costs of the particular opiate heroin has one of the leading positions. The heroin users themselves cost the government around $44,950, considering all the expenses of dealing with crime, health, and social issues caused by the addiction. Although the person addicted to heroin gets to jail, the costs increase and result in $74,428 per person when part of it is due to the productivity loss. The overall costs of heroin addiction take a significant amount of the government budget, and the citizens' taxes could be spent on dealing with critical health or social problems. Since there are many illegal substances and drugs with multiple effects and ways of supply, it takes an individual approach to each case. Considering the misuse of opioids is one of the most widespread issues connected to drug addiction, there are some methods to manage the problem. Firstly, it can be great to start with improving the system of healthcare, specifically, access to treatment and the process of healing. The department might develop more effective alternative ways of accessing medical help and recovering after the treatment so people will not need to use opioids that often. Secondly, the promotion of reverse medication that helps with overdoses would save many people's lives and prevent multiple deaths. In addition to the prevention methods, governments should work on better practices for dealing with pain. When people have an alternative to medications and painkillers, it will eventually decrease opioid overuse. It is crucial to provide the population with various safe choices to help themselves without being at risk of getting an addiction. Examining the factors that lead people to use substances, the role of the power dynamics has a significant contribution to it. Considering genders, men usually are more prone to different kinds of addiction, whether it is alcohol, drugs, nicotine, or video games. However, recent research supposes that the gap between male and female addiction is disappearing, particularly among young adults. While men more often experience overdoses, women are tended to get addicted more quickly and at a younger age. When adolescents start using drugs, their habit has a higher chance of growing into addiction when they become older. Among the racial groups, the marginal parts of the society suffer from drug use often as well. Still, there is no connection between the addiction and race or ethnicity. It can result in systematic racism and oppression. Socioeconomic status is another factor that impacts the predisposition of substance use, especially among teenagers, for they have few material limits and more opportunities for experimentations. Thus, some aspects can cause the reasons and circumstances for drug use, but it still mostly depends on the environment that the person grows and exists. In conclusion, the problem of drug addiction is still relevant nowadays, and it influences all the spheres of an individual's life. Moreover, it affects society locally, nationally, and globally because the issue of drug addiction is still widespread all over the world. To prevent the population from addiction, the government should develop measures to prevent people from seeking additional measures of relieving pain or escaping reality with its problems. Despite all the researchers and policies implemented, drug addiction is a massive and challenging global issue that still requires a decent amount of work to reach some progress. StudyCorgi.com has everything you need for successful studies. Writing tools, informative articles, and essay samples. Come check it out.